Hello, everyone. We're going to be reading Chapter 9 of Toro Moon by Derby Carshut. Skinners exploded at the rocks like ants boiling from a boot's ravaged tail, spitting mad and looking for a fight. The foremost ones knocked the little decoy into the air. Those in the next rank rambled it into the dirt, braying and howling. They raced toward us in a pack, banging into each other. I sat frozen, heart jammed against the roof of my mouth. Too many! Dad rose in the stirrups and gestured toward the gate. Go, go, Andale! Go, go, Andale. Sorry, I don't know what Andale is. Turk reached over and nipped Izzy's hindquarters. Get Ben out of here! Hey, watch it! She stumbled, trying to kick Turk and run at the same time. A Skinner leaped for Ben's leg. He yanked it out of reach and swung his mace. Bloody chunks blew everywhere. Izzy squelched through a pile of remains and took off. Turk on her heels and Elsid behind him. The war horses plowed through the encircling Skinners, bones snapping like kindling beneath the hooves. I shifted my grip to Roman's belt and tried not to think about what would happen if I fell off. Unable to resist, I looked back. Heads low, the pack ran flat out. Even so, they were losing the race. I wanted to cheer. No demon spawned a Skinner. Elsid's words whispered in my memory. Has ever outrun an Andalusian. Dang right. Out of the corner of my vision, I caught movement above my head. With a gasp, I looked up. Several dark shapes dropped from the top of the school bus-sized boulder. Something thick and wet and sticky slammed into me. The impact tore my fingers loose from Roman's belt. Weightless, I flew through the air, screaming as I punched and kicked. Whoop! I slammed into the dirt and skidded a few feet, leaving behind a layer of skin. Burning pain shot through my elbows and lower back. Rolling over, I pushed up to one arm. I shook my vision clear of stars and ordered my lungs to work. Next to me, a Skinner rose to its feet, lips pulled away from its fangs. It slinked toward me. Then a steel-shod hoof stomped down. With a wet splat, the creature burst apart like a smashed pumpkin. Globs of fresh Skinner blew everywhere. Duck! Roman shouted from Turk's back. With a curse, I threw myself flat. A hoof slashed past my face, ruffling my air. Another Skinner stumbled over me, its claws racking my back through my shirt. Then it pushed off and leaped for Turk's throat. Breathless, I crawled to safety of a nearby boulder. More Skinners surrounded us. Standing between me and the pack, Turk crushed the closest beast, then pivoted to meet the next ones. Mangled creatures crawled around, shrieking as they reformed. Roman's mace was a blur. My mace? Where was my mace? I looked around. Panic tore at me. He spotted it a few feet away. Chest heaving, I lunged to my feet. I grabbed a handful of sand with a haft, then planted my backside against the boulder. My knees shook. I locked them tight and sucked in an uneven breath. Then immediately spat out a couple of flies. One Skinner snuck around Turk and slouched towards me, showing off its fangs. The memory of Dad with the Skinner hanging from its leg whisked through my brain. Come any closer, I raised my weapon in a two-handed grip, and I'll knock him down your throat. The Skinner crouched, preparing to leap. Its muscles rippled under naked flesh. My own skin crawled. I took a step forward. Eat iron! Then I swung my mace like a Louisville slugger. Totally missed the Skinner. Nailed the boulder. Whang! Sparks shot into the air. Shockwaves zing up my arms and into my shoulder. Cursing, I swung again. The Skinner ducked. Strike two. Taunting me, the monster danced from side to side, grinning like we shared a secret. Venom dripped from its canines. The stench of rotten meat coated my tongue. I pressed my lips together, wishing I could squeeze my nostrils just as tight. Gritting my teeth, I tightened my grip and lifted my weapon. Espana! Sorry. The Navarre battle cry. The Skinner's head exploded under Roman's mace in a spray of gore. Warm droplets spattered onto my face. A pause. Then with a bang, the rest of it vanished too. The surviving Skinners backed away, growling and snarling. Turk raised a front hoof in warning. Panting, I spat, then wiped my mouth on my shoulder. Matt! Roman held out his free hand. wet leftovers dripped from his hand of his mace. Hurry! I sprinted toward him. Right on cue, my toe caught a rock. With a cry, I tipped and skidded on my free hand and knees, taking more skin off of my palm. To my astonishment, I managed to hang on to my mace. Reeling to my feet, I flung myself toward Turk. He seemed a million miles away. The pack crept closer. Heart hammering against my ribs, I stretched for Roman's hand. Our fingers almost touched. I'm not going to make it. There's too many of them. A rolling thunder filled my ears. The rumble grew and grew, getting closer with every second. I could almost feel its power vibrating through the soles of my boots. Santiago! Like a winter blizzard roaring in over the mountains, El Cid plowed like into the pack. Izzy was right behind him. Skinners flew into the air just in time to meet Dad's mace. His weapon rose and fell, hammer strikes of reckoning. Every stroke a kill. Whoa, I whispered. An iron hand grabbed my arm. Do you need an invitation? With a grunt, Roman jerked me off the ground and hauled me into the stallion's broad haunch. Go, Turk! No, I'm not leaving Javier. As if I would let anything to happen to him, El Cid shouted, grinding another Skinner into the ground. Get the boy to safety. With a snarl that matched the Skinner's, the black kicked his way out of the clear pack and took off. I threw a desperate glance over my shoulder. To my relief, my family pounded after us. Beyond Dad and Ben, Skinners wiggled feebly on the ground, like smashed beetles. Even so, they tried to drag themselves along with legs dangling or heads half-formed. I grimaced. Yeesh, zombie dogs, all right. We sped for the gate. Izzy and El Cid caught up with us, both breathing hard. Not Turk, though. Even carrying 2 riders, he sailed over rocks and bushes and ravines without breaking stride. Each thrust of his powerful legs kicked the earth beneath us and sent it spinning. A fierce dark thrill welled up, as if the stallion's strength and speed became mine, as if his lungs and heart were mine. Did my father feel this way when he read the black? Leaning to one side, I squinted into the wind. The gate. My heart rose at the sight. A low word from Roman. Turk slowed, powering up the slope. Izzy took the lead and shot through first. Ben rode stretched out low over her neck, a jockey in a race. Turk and El Cid chased her heels. The cool air was a punch to my chest. The war horse's hooves beats echoed off the stone walls as if the entire cavalry ran with us. Suddenly, a blast of light and warmth in the open range. The horses slowed, then wheeled around and stopped, blowing hard and snorting. I squinted at the gate. The foremost Skinner slid to a halt, and just inside the opening. From the shadow, it glared at us, teeth bared. The rest of the pack milled behind it, shapes in the darkness. I leaned around Roman for a better look, wincing as the movement pulled at the scratches. What happens if they try to leave the maze? Dad and Roman exchanged glances. Then, with a faint smile, my father hooked his mace on the horn, then swung out of the saddle and dropped to the ground. Really, Javier? Elsid grumbled. Is this necessary? Necessary? No. Educational? Yes. Dad strolled forward a few yards and stood there, holding his weaponless hand out. Is he baiting them? Ben asked. Roman nodded. I noticed he kept his weapon at the ready. It is very hard for Skinners to resist a human on foot. After all, we are their favorite meal. But won't the wards stop them? I glanced up to the tops of the butters on either side of the gates. I mean, would the Skinners even try? It depends how hungry they are. He paused, then added, or if there's enough of them. You mean enough to swamp the wards? Ben said. See, when the Queen's wards are muy powerful, they cannot hold back an overwhelming force at one time. In a mass assault, some creatures will get through. That is why we hunt on a regular basis, to thin the evil we guard. I thought of the descendants of the Knights of the Coffer living secret lives all over the Southwest. The Navarevis in New Mexico, the Montoñas, enormous extended family currently led by 4 sisters down in Arizona, the Rayens clan over in Utah, and more hunters spread across Texas, Nevada, and California. For the first time, I wondered just how much evil had been dumped in the New World. And you two should know, especially you, Ben, that one of the finest and most respected hunters alive is that hombre loco right there. Roman pointed his mace at our father. Chewing on that statement in my lower lip, I eyed Dad. The whole time the Skinner snarled and growled, pacing back and forth. A shark cruising the waves for surfers, its mad eyes never left my father. Dad took another step and spread his arms wider. Guess it must have been pretty hungry. The Skinner crouched down, then belly crawled out of the shadow and into the light. Raw flesh gleamed wetly in the afternoon sun. It crept closer, one paw, then another. Flies swooped and soared overhead with glee. My heart stumbled. Dad? Crack! A lightning bolt shot from the top of one of the buttes. The butters. I jumped. So did Ben and Izzy. I blinked and waited for my vision to clear. A pile of leftover Skinner steamed on the ground in front of the gate. Tendrils of smoke wafted toward us. It smelled like a convenience store hot dog. The remaining creatures melted away and disappeared into the maze. Ben and I looked at each other wide-eyed. The wards? I asked. Every time. Every time? Faithfully, Dad said, strolling back, ignoring Elsid's comments about hunters who can't resist showing off. He remounted, then lifted his hat and saluted the buttes. Gracias, mis viejos amigos. Sorry. My brother chuckled. I gulped. Was he laughing at our father? I peeked at Dad. Ben pointed his mace at the mound of smoking monsters. Sorry. His eyes danced. Talk about getting thored. I groaned, secretly relieved. Dad shook his head, then leaned over and placed a hand on Ben's neck and pulled him closer. He said something in a low voice. My brother's face flushed with pride. He shrugged. Guess you taught me what I'm doing, Pop. Sorry. Just doing what you taught me, Pop, he said. Eyes locked on Izzy's ears, the faint smile stayed on his face. It matched the one on Dad's. Man, I'd go up against a pack of Skinners by myself, in the dark, without a mace, every day, just for that. Overhead, the sky darkened. More clouds shoved into place, lining up for a chance to dump their load on us. A raising breeze sent the grasses blowing and waving. Home, gentlemen. Dad tipped his hat to Izzy and Senorita. She rolled her eyes. The horses' hooves swished through the grass as they dragged themselves home. Foam coated their necks and chests. Elsid's coat was specked with flecks of red, turning him into a roan. I looked back at the maze. Sure was a lot of Skinners, I said to Ben. Wonder how we're going to get to the cave, and how's Dad going to seal it up again? Guess we'll find out sooner than later. He nudged Izzy closer to Turk. Hey, you okay? I peered down. My t-shirt looked like a butcher's apron. It matched Turk's coat. I'm good, but this shirt's history. Bummer. It was my favorite one too. Scared the cow patty out of me when you fell off. Don't do that again, okay? I mean it, or I'll have to kill you. Matt, on the other side. Matt? On the other side, Dad took my shoulder and twisted me to one side. I stifled a hiss. He frowned. Think I scraped up my back when I hit the ground. Stings like crazy. Tore out my elbows too. Dad nodded. And you, Turk? Nothing worth mentioning. I've been bit worse by horseflies. Sorry that I'm messing up so much. Still gripping my shoulder, Dad spoke to Roman and Turk. Muchas gracias to both of you for this one. The hunter waved off Dad's gratitude. Matt did well, no? Sure he did. Turk snorted, except for falling off and missing all his swings and tripping over his own feet. Dad, I interrupted the black. How are we going to get the coffer with all those Skinners around? We will have to figure it out. A line appeared between his brows. Whatever the plan, we mustn't rush into anything. Elsid flattened his ears. The words are holding, after all. But for how long? Izzy jogged a few steps to catch up. If more of those meatballs find a way to slither out, a low rumble overhead. Another one followed. I gulped and stared down at the maze, slowing. Elsid lifted his head, nostrils working. The breeze lifted his mane. How long? Dad asked. 10 minutes if we're lucky, Turk. Isabel? Best speed for home. With that, he broke into a wary gallop. And that is the end of chapter 9. Sorry. Thank you for listening. Sorry that I messed up so much. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, just throw them in the comments. And thank you.